Commissioner Rodriguez Ceja, Commissioner Isiano, Commissioner Fajardo,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Lopez,
Present.
Chairperson Franz. For the record, Commissioner Rodriguez Ceja, Commissioner Isiano, and Chairperson Franz are absent.
Commissioner Franz going to call in or zoom in?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Okay. Next, take to item number 3. Do we have any public comment for the items that are on the agenda for today?
There are none.
Okay. So since we do not have quorum, we're going to go ahead and we go ahead and
I believe we can table them. for the
table.
next-
Yes, thank you. The minutes, item 4.1 and 4.2. The minutes for February 15th and 28th. And what takes us right into our public hearing item? We have none. No action items, so we're going and looking to a study session item, which is 7.1. So this is a project consultation for Sonora Homes by Abode Communities Project. Okay, go ahead and start with staff, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kendra Reeve, Principal Planner. Just a quick overview of the project. The project is located at the southeast corner of Fred Waring Drive and Hoover Avenue. The current general plan and current zoning designation for the parcel are mixed-use neighborhood. The proposed project, Sonora Homes by Abode Communities, is proposing to develop 203 affordable housing units. The housing units will range in size from 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. There will be an estimated 273 parking spaces on site. The project will also be developing an 11,791 square foot early childhood education center, a community pool and spa, and community park. The early childhood education center is intended to provide care for preschool aged children, as well as include amenities such as classrooms, office space, and playground areas. The project is vacant and is approximately 7.6 acres in size. It is bounded by Fred Waring to the north, existing residential developments to the south and west, and an existing Riverside County Social Services building to the east. The proposed property currently has a general plan 2040 land use designation of mixed-use neighborhood and a zoning designation of mixed-use neighborhood. The project's proposed multifamily housing, community amenities, commercial uses, and associated improvements are permitted within this zone. The project is required to obtain planning review approval from the Planning Commission unless appealed to the City Council. The project must also demonstrate compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. The applicants are now ready to present their project.
Oh, thank you. And before we get started, our friends on Zoom confirmed on the call. We have our architecture teams.
Yeah, I have Noel and Raven.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Okay. Well, good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Brendan O'Donnell. I'm Associate Vice President of Development with Abode Communities. I'm here with Stephanie Camacho Ariola, who is our project manager overseeing the Sonora Homes project that we're going to be presenting to you tonight. Also joined by Nicole Van with MSA Consulting, who's helping us with our entitlement application. So before we jump into the project, just wanted to say thanks so much for taking the time to have this consultation with us. Really appreciate your feedback and any questions and comments to help us improve the project. And before we dive into the details of the project, just wanted to provide a little bit more background on Abode Communities. So I guess this moves the slides. Is there a certain place I need to point this to? There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Abode Communities, we're a nonprofit organization. We actually just celebrated our 55th anniversary last year, so we're very excited about that. It means we've been doing this work of community development for quite some time. We actually started as a community design center in the 60s in Los Angeles. And over the past many decades, we've evolved our mission to better serve the community. And so that's involved adding on, housing development to provide more housing residents to our clients. And then when our portfolio grew, taking on in-house property management services to better meet their needs. And then lastly, adding a robust resident services division to respond to the various needs of our building residents. So multifaceted team, community-oriented, and all in service of our mission of providing high quality housing and helping to sustain it for the long term. And while we're based in City of Los Angeles and many of our projects are in the County of Los Angeles, we also have quite a bit of work across several jurisdictions in Northern California, as well as a number of projects here in Riverside County. So we just celebrated a grand opening for our Vista Dorada project, which is a home key project in the city of Corona, a couple weeks ago, so we're excited about that. And then we also have a couple of projects in Indian Wells and Coachella that are in progress, as well as our property management team is overseeing some properties in Indian Wells. So we're excited to be doing more work in Riverside County, and in particular here in the city of Indio. So with that, I will hand it over to Stephanie for a few more details on the project itself. Yeah, just the arrows.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. Sonora Homes, Abode Communities was awarded the RFP to build this project on vacant county-owned land. We are in an exclusive negotiating agreement with the Housing Authority to bring forth a mixed-use development project consisting of 2 residential phases and 1 commercial space. This is a multi-phase construction project that will be financed in 3 separate phases, consisting of 107 units being built out in phase 1, 96 units in phase 2, as well as the standalone early childhood education center. I think Noel,
Yeah, Noel,
Senior
I'm here.
Associate Designer Noel Toro, and Raven Flores, the principal of our architecture studio, will now walk you through the design.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good afternoon, commissioners. Can you hear me? I'll make sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next, please. Sonora Homes will be located at the intersection of Fred Waring Drive and Hoover Avenue, as shown here in the vicinity map. Next, please. Here's a view of the current zoning map of the site. Next, please. The surrounding zones include mixed-use neighborhoods, single-family neighborhoods, and nearby public uses. Next, please. The adjacent use include to the north a vacant lot with anticipated future mixed-use developments. It's across Fred Waring, single-family, single-story neighborhoods to the west and the south, and the Riverside County Workforce Development Center with the surrounding parking lot to the east of the property. The site's primary views are the mountains toward the north and the southwest. Vehicular traffic is most active along Fred Waring and further north on the 10 freeway. Hoover Avenue, a collector street, is less active on the west of the project and the south. The central community spaces are nestled inside the project, furthest away from activity of the surrounding streets. Next, please. And next, please. On-site vehicular traffic runs north, south, and east-west. There are 3 vehicular entrances on Hoover Avenue on the west and the south edges of the project, and on Fred Waring, there's 1 exit-only driveway and 1 vehicular entrance located farthest from the intersection with Hoover. There's a vehicular access to an early childhood center, which is at the southwest part of the project, and that there's vehicular entrances at that southernmost entrance on Hoover. Next, the site consists of 7 interconnected blocks designed with a pedestrian path network that creates a highly walkable community for residents and staff. Amenities such as a centralized community area, smaller outdoor paseos, parking, laundry rooms, and other ancillary spaces are all at easily walkable location for residents. Next, building footprints. The neighborhood style of the site contains 4 primary building types that are carefully located to enhance community life internally and respond to the surrounding context. So building type A are 7 total, and they're located along Hoover Avenue. They go from 1 to 3 story. This is step building, and these contain either 9 or 12 units, these buildings A. 4 type B buildings are located on the site's interior and northeast edge. They are 3 and 4 story step buildings with double loaded corridors and elevators. Each of these buildings contain either 36 or 24 units. And buildings C and D are unique buildings. Building C is a two-story building with a central that contains the central community spaces at the ground level and 7 units of residential units on the second floor. And finally, building type D is the Early Child Care Center. It's a standalone single-story building of approximately 12,000 square feet. That's building D. Next, please. This site plan indicates building heights that range from 1 to 4 stories. The darker colors represent taller heights and the lighter colors represent the shorter heights. Taller buildings are purposefully arranged farthest from the single-family neighborhoods to best contextualize with the surrounding community form. Next, please. 292 residential parking spaces are provided along the driveways facing the residential buildings. 24 parking spaces are provided for the Early Childhood Center with a drop-off and pickup location at the southernmost part of the project. Next, please. We provide tandem spaces with covered carports for the larger residential units shown in light orange here. My graphics show a little bit light, but I hope that's visible for you. Next, there's required accessible electric vehicle spaces. Next, please. And next. And parking spaces are covered with carports that are shown here in red, should be. Next, please. We're providing bicycle parking to meet the requirements of bicycle parking of the city, both short-term and long-term. The short-term parking is located closest to the building entrances and will be located under trees or other shaded areas. Next, please. And long-term bicycle parking will be inside locked bicycle parking rooms dispersed throughout the development. Now I want to talk a bit about open space. So Sonora Homes was designed to provide multiple planted and shaded outdoor open spaces for residents to enjoy and interact with. The centralized community space is the heart of the community, and it will contain amenities such as a pool for residents, shaded play structure for children, seating, and native landscaping. This open space is also next to an outdoor covered space, which allows for outdoor shaded activities. Next, please. Smaller open spaces between the buildings form paseos and mini plazas planted with trees and seated areas for residents' enjoyment. Next, please. And the Early Childhood Center has a private open space for exclusive use of children and staff. This outdoor area is divided into smaller areas designated for the different age groups of infant toddlers, 2-year-olds, and preschoolers. And it will provide age-appropriate furniture and shaded play areas. Next, please. And here's a view of Sonora Homes from above. Next. As you can see, the centralized main community building is equally accessible to residents from all directions. An open-to-sky stormwater retention basin will be provided, it's in green here, to collect and treat all the rainfall that falls over the project. Next, please. And here is a network of secondary common area spaces that include laundry rooms, and entry lobbies. Next, please. So these secondary areas are adjacent to and in close relationship with smaller outdoor paseos and courtyards, providing spaces for residents to encounter their neighbors and foster a stronger sense of community among the residents. Further, these spaces are interconnected by a network of sidewalks and paths, which make this a walkable and active community. And next, this is a view of where the carports would be. They are covering all parking spaces and will be designed for potentially future photovoltaic panels. And next are the ancillary spaces, which are laundries and trash rooms. The site plan shows location of these spaces that we have mentioned already, and they're next to outdoor spaces, allowing for the outdoor space to interact with them, creating a waiting area and a place to meet with neighbors. Same goes with the trash room. And trash rooms are located to reduce the walking distance between them and each residential unit. And the last slide I will talk about is the phasing. This is a site plan, a slide showing the project expected phasing plan. Phase 1 will contain 107 units and the centralized community spaces. Phase 2 will add 96 units and share the centralized community spaces with Phase 1. And Phase 3 consists of the Early Childhood Education Center with corresponding parking. Thank you.
Raven, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, Commissioner. The architectural language being developed for the project draws inspiration from Spanish colonial revival and mid-century modern styles, both of which strive for purposeful and uncluttered design to resolve functionality with simplicity. Next. These images are examples of how clean lines and organic shapes are used to frame views, mark entries, transition indoors and outdoors, provide focal points, shade, and define gathering spaces. Next. The courtyard buildings along Hoover are cloistered in pairs. Next. Creating garden-style walk-up units with entries off of a semi-private courtyard enclosed on 3 to 4 sides. Next. 1, 2, and 3-story massing step down the building scale. This, along with the use of simple materials of plaster, glazing, metal railing, tones and accent colors, and architectural building elements, help to define a ground pedestrian level and express an overall residential scale. Awnings, bins, overhangs, and furred-out walls at key locations articulate the elevation's facade and provide shade relief. Next. The 3 to 4-story double-loaded corridor elevator type buildings are located along Fred Waring and further within the project site away from the residential neighborhood. Next. Situated next to carport parking along landscape passeos and central courtyards, these building entrance lobbies are adjacent to common use laundries and bike storage. Next. Again, using scale and transitions, material and building elements, the pedestrian level and residential scale is expressed. Next. The community building is located at a walkable project site center adjacent to a community outdoor pool, playground, and landscape courtyard with seating. Next. With residential units all located at the 2nd story, the ground level is dedicated to common spaces comprised of community room, property management, resident services, mail, bike storage, and other ancillary spaces. The community room opens to a large outdoor covered space facing the central courtyard and landscape areas for larger gatherings. Next. Similar articulation, materials, and building elements are used at the community building. However, at key ground level locations, large-scale common spaces are expressed with glazed areas tucked beyond deep overhangs that wrap the building, providing shade and expressing a strong invitation to the residential community to gather. Functional support spaces for elevators and stairs and ancillary program are expressed with simple forms and tones. Next. Next. The ECE is a standalone 1-story building located at the southeastern corner of the project site. Next. A sidewalk curb cut just off of Hoover in front of the ECE is suggested. A deep overhang roof marks the entry, providing shaded transitional space for the pickup drop-off area. Covered circulation and classroom entries are off of a courtyard outdoor play area enclosed by the L-shaped building and a landscape privacy garden wall at the south end. Next. The ECE uses similar materials and building elements as the other buildings with a bit more expression in the massing, material, and color. In the west elevation, unrestricted by a 2nd story, the roof lines slope gently, breaking up scale, articulating classroom spaces, and allowing for clear stories to bring in natural light while still maintaining classroom privacy. On the left, a simple massing form with color change marks the shaded entry drop-off area recessed below the last butterfly roof. Next. These are the typical unit plans used in all the residential buildings for 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. It looks a little light from where I'm seeing. I see it on mine, not so sure. Next slide. This view looks northeast from Hoover, across from the single-family residential. ECE is on the right, across from a typical 1 to 3 story courtyard building. Next. This view looks southwest from the corner of Fred Waring and Hoover, with typical 1 to 3 story courtyard buildings going down Hoover, and on the left, the 3 and 4 story elevator buildings on Fred Waring.
Thank you, Raven and Noel. Shown here is the timeline for this project. As previously indicated, we are in the process of getting ready to submit our entitlements application this spring. We anticipate land use approvals this fall. Once entitled, we will go ahead and secure funding for phase 1 with an expected construction start date of February 2027. Phase 2 will follow a similar funding timeline with an expected construction start of February 2028. Both phases of residential construction have an anticipated 20-month construction timeline. The ECE Center can begin construction as early as January 2026 if all of our funding sources are secured by then. Here is our contact information. We are ready for your questions and comments, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So just to clarify, you'd mentioned early on that there will be 3 entrances, right? And forgive me, but was it 2 off of Hoover, or were there 2 off of Fred Waring?
Noel
There
Toro.
Yeah, I could explain. There are 3 vehicular entrances on Hoover and 1 entrance on, excuse me, I'll repeat that. 3 entrances on Hoover and 1 entrance on Fred Waring, and there's another additional exit only from, yeah, maybe with the site plan it'll be better. Yeah, if you keep going up, Stephanie, there's one, this one, yeah, this one. Here we go. Yeah, so the 3 entry exits on Hoover, you could see them there. And then on Fred Waring, closest to the intersection, there's an exit only vehicular exit there. And then there's an entry exit furthest from the intersection. So on Fred Waring. I hope that explains it.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to also express thanks for the presentation, firstly, and thank you for the comprehensive presentation on that. I really appreciate the opportunity of also looking at how you've incorporated as part of Phase 3 the Early Childhood Education Center. So I do appreciate those types of residential services for our community. Now, quickly, in terms of this map, right, so I'm assuming the ECE is on the lower part, right, to the lower right?
Correct.
And what was the selection, the rationale for the selection in that area, once again?
It was
From a
based
design
off of the recommendations that we received. I think we spoke to, I believe it was folks at the city or county that gave us early guidance that the original ECE Center was in the furthest northwest corner, and because of vehicular traffic coming in from the main street, it would be a bad place to put the ECE Center. So the recommended next process would be to move it a little bit further south, away from busy traffic.
Copy that. Thank you, because, yeah, my experience on that Hoover Street, which I thought was a good placement for it, hence the question, because I did see that in the past, that particular area tends to be a lot, obviously, less congested than Fred Waring, so I do appreciate that. And then also, just really quickly, for Plan 1, you'd mentioned early on in the presentation, and thank you for the submission, too, of the plans. But just for clarification, so the first phase off of Hoover, that particular phase of buildings, it may include, you said, up to 4 stories off of Hoover? Is that correct?
Yes, we'll go ahead and pull up the site plan
Thank
with
you.
the building. Oh, actually, a little bit further down.
Yeah, if you want to go to the one that has the building heights, Stephanie, that probably could show it pretty clearly too.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, you could keep going, Stephanie. Yep.
And the
Almost.
question while you pull
That,
that up
next,
is-
yeah, just one up. There you go. Yeah.
It's the dark shaded,
The
darker
dark
shaded
shaded,
green.
Try
right.
to step it back a little bit from Hoover and keep it more to the center of the property where possible.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure because again, I was noticing off of Hoover, unless my glasses are deceiving me, obviously those are going to be up to 3 stories and not the 4-story, which is the centered one, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. That was all.
Questions here. Towards the end of your presentation, you only have a 3-bedroom rendering. Is there a reason why there wasn't the 1 or 2 bedroom not posted on here?
I think it may have just been conversion from PowerPoint to PDF possibly, so we can certainly resend that slide
Okay.
with the accurate plans.
Okay. And then kind of looking at, I really like the design for the early childhood education, but looking at the community center, I noticed it's like a different kind of style of architecture. Can you say why it's a little different, going from mid-century modern for the childhood development center to something a little different with the community center?
Sure.
And if there's plans to kind of keep it the same?
Yeah. Noel and Raven, care to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. The standalone building has a little bit more freedom than the community building that has the residential above. And so the residential is expressed to kind of tie in with the rest of the site that is primarily residential. And at the ground level of the community room, that's where we try to incorporate, the deep overhangs and kind of just gathering spaces. So it's not necessarily mid-century modern. It's just it's inspired by styles, even other styles that are just simply trying to kind of mark areas and in a very simple way. So the Child Care Center has a bit more freedom to express that. And so I hope that answers your question, but it's in early stages right now, but those were our inspirations, and we're trying to use them selectively where it seems appropriate, and we felt that the community room and the Child Care Center were the best places to kind of use that, and then maybe carry that more simple geometry into the other parts of the residential portions of the project, but not necessarily, expressing it in the same way.
Yeah, I guess I was looking for a little bit more consistency. So if you're in a community where it seems like it's like different buildings look different for that community. I just have an eye for that, my personal eye for that. There was something else. Is there plans to put, and I know we're probably jumping the gun here, I would probably recommend like a traffic plan, traffic study to kind of look at that Hoover, Kendra, if there's any plans for that.
Our
Hoover Street?
consulting traffic engineer, Mr. Mark Greenwood, stated that since the project is in compliance with the general plan and the zoning code, that he will not require a full traffic study, but he will require a traffic memo that will review congestion in this area. Public Works will also be reviewing the project in the entry and exit points. So I know Commissioner Fajardo brought up the different entry points along Hoover Street. They will be bringing that up and examining that during the planning review process.
Okay. And hopefully that'll be during school time when kids are going to and from school and when the county's open, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And if I may also, just to follow up on that, in regards to that traffic study or the traffic memo, just knowing and living here, lifelong resident in Indio, and we see some of our, unfortunate, constraints with parking in a lot of these apartment communities, right? And oftentimes we see a lot of people parking on the street as a result of that. And so just hoping and just with your folks' consideration for maybe reconsidering, a little bit of the parking challenges that we see in the city, maybe doing a little bit more research on that. I don't know if there's a parking matter right now with the adjacent apartments that are next door, if whether or not there's enough spaces for those residents there. And I know that sometimes that overflow does trickle onto Hoover, so that could present some kind of challenges to pedestrians and vehicular traffic. So just as an FYI, because I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. And then also, I had a question about your elevators. Having served as a site principal with exterior elevators in the desert where there's dirt and there's sand and elevators broke down all the time.
Okay.
So just as an FYI, I don't know if the plan is to have them protected in some form of an atrium or enclosure of some sort. Can you speak to that a little bit, or are they going to be exterior-based elevators?
Yeah, I don't know, Noah or Raven, if we have that level of detail yet in terms of the treatment of the elevators. But that,
Well, the 1 to 3 stories, they're walk-ups. They are non-elevator buildings, and then the 3 and 4, the elevator buildings, they're tucked within the floor plan. However, it is open corridors, naturally ventilated corridors.
but the
So I don't know what the exact issue, maybe you could describe the issue that you ran into.
Yeah, just with the exterior elevator doors facing the outside elements, unfortunately, we found ourselves having to, contact Otis, right, to come on out and essentially reset the elevators because of a lot of the dirt and the silt that gets into the system when they're constantly opening and shutting, especially out here when the winds get up. I'm just looking out for, potential issues, including potentially ADA, related matters. So just consideration for perhaps maybe enclosing those or having them tucked away,
Sure.
as I believe she had suggested. And again, just food for thought. I thought
Yeah.
I'd share that.
No, our property management team appreciates that. So yeah,
You bet.
thank you.
Yeah, good to know.
I guess that's all I have for now.
Do you guys have any questions for the planning commissioners?
Nicole, is there anything process-wise you wanted to ask about? I think this was mainly just, courtesy presentation to get your feedback and questions. We will be submitting our entitlements hopefully in a couple weeks and including, design review application as part of that. So just thought it was important and helpful to engage with your team early and get your feedback. So thanks again for making the time for us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Commissioner Collins, you have any commissioner comments?
Commissioner comment? No, just want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you, Jackie, for joining us today as well. It's me and you here holding it down. So just thank you for those that presented this evening. Thank you, Kendra, for your help and support this evening, as well as Ms. Mendoza. So thank you, guys.
Staff items.
We'll be meeting again March 27th to review the planning review application for the Riverside County Office of Education Expansion Project. We will also be having another project consultation for the Oasis at Indio, formerly known as BH Properties, which is a mixed-use development that has some light industrial, some commercial, and some residential uses. I believe Kevin will also be bringing forward some discussion items for the storage facility moratorium, so we can further our discussion on that as well.
We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting for our next meeting for March 27th here at 6 p.m. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.